Welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha, a podcast shared by David Roylance. This podcast is dedicated to guiding you to completely eliminate the discontent mind and the suffering it causes by attaining enlightenment. Learn and practice the teachings of Gotama Buddha that will guide you to fully attain a peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy. To support this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha or visit buddhadailywisdom.com, where you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online learning resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Now, here's our teacher to share more.
Sawadee-ka. Welcome everyone. Nice to see you guys. Today is our group learning program where I'm going to be sharing with you guys chapter 6 of this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This chapter is titled The Middle Way, Walking the Middle Way. This is a very simple, very short, very brief teaching that is going to probably take me all of 15 or 20 minutes to teach it to you. And then I'm going to open up to any and all questions that you guys have. The simplicity of this teaching is what makes it so profound. When you're applying it in your day-to-day life, that's what actually makes it really profound. So it's not going to take you a long time to understand this teaching, and then it's actually the application of this teaching where you're going to see all the results. So I'd like to welcome all of you, whether you're joining for the first time or you're joining regularly. The way that we start our classes is we start with meditation. So if you'd like to join for meditation, I'm going to start with some chanting to ease us into meditation, and you're welcome to join along in the chanting. And then afterwards, I'm going to come in with some guidance and guiding you in meditation. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting, and that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys understand chapter 6. So you're welcome and invited to join for the meditation. We usually take the seated, lying, standing. There's also a walking position, but this doesn't usually work out too well for online learning. So take any position that you're comfortable with, and I'll be back after the chanting in order to guide you in the meditation. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Potang Mahakawanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavito Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Photang Mahakavanhang Apivadeyami Savakhato Mahakavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammono Sakhato Rokavito Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatava Manusarang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you, whether you're joining for the first time or you're joining regularly. Welcome to our class today. Today's class is the group learning program where we meet each Sunday and Wednesday at either 9 a.m., either at our temple here in Chiang Mai or online because we live stream that class, or you can meet 9 p.m. Sunday and Wednesday Thai time. In no matter what time zone that is where you live, you can join at these times, either online or in person at the temple. And what we're doing is we're gradually making our way through this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. You can get this book from our website by downloading it. It's free. You can just download it and have access to it and read it right online if you like. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions on Amazon, or you can purchase them at the temple by just reimbursing us for our printing cost. And slowly but surely, we're making our way through this book to help you build a foundation in the path to enlightenment, understanding the teachings of the Buddha to be able to guide you to this enlightened mental state, where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, where you no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are completely eliminated from the mind. And this happens through training of the mind, moving the mind towards this enlightened mental state by arising wisdom in the mind and applying wise decision making in your day-to-day life to uproot certain pollutions that are in the mind. And as you're doing this, you're going to see gradual improvements to the condition of the mind in your life. One of the biggest myths about the life story of the Buddha is people think that he sat under a tree, he meditated, and then instantly got to enlightenment. But instead, he discovered this middle way. He learned and grew and developed. He did what he needed to do in order to get to enlightenment and figured out this for himself. He didn't have any teachers or any guides. That's one of the things that a Buddha is going to experience, is that they're going to be able to get to enlightenment without any teachers or any guides. And the Buddha did this, getting to enlightenment by the age of 35. And as he started teaching over the next 45 years, ultimately dying at the age of 80, he starts to talk about this middle way that he discovered as part of his journey to enlightenment. Over a 6-year period from the age of 29 to 35, he trains his mind. Initially, for the first 2 years, he trains with some teachers, and they were teaching him to hang himself upside down from trees, lay on beds of nails, pierce the body with metal implements, starving the body. The thought was that if you could essentially cause physical pain to the body and the mind could overcome that physical pain, that you would get to enlightenment. And there were many people that were claiming that they were enlightened during his lifetime. And he did this for 2 years with 2 different teachers. And he got frustrated with the whole thing because it wasn't leading to an improved condition of mind. So he goes off on his own in the forest, and ultimately he comes to understanding the middle way. This middle way is something that he realizes when he's actually starving himself and on death's doorstep. And there's this mother and this young child who come to him, and they offer him some rice, and they beg and plead with him to eat this rice because they could see he had starved himself so much he was just skin and bones, essentially. And he has this realization at this moment where he realizes that when he was a prince in the royal palace, living a life of luxury with all the royal riches that you could imagine and all the central pleasures that he had, he realized that in that situation, he wasn't in the middle. And then when he left the royal palace, he swung all the way to the other side, where he was disparaging the body, he was starving the body, he was doing all these degrading things to the body. And he wasn't able to get to enlightenment when he was doing either of those two things. So he starts to realize he needs to come to the middle. He needs to do things in moderation. And he develops what's called the Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha that I taught last week. And this is the middle way. If you train your mind in the middle way through the Eightfold Path, you will get to this peace and joy that is the enlightened mental state. During his teaching career, there was a young woman who was talking to him. She was an ordained practitioner who used to play an instrument. She used to play a lute, a stringed instrument. And as she was playing this instrument in the past, she understood this instrument well and how to tune it and how it worked and all these different things. So the Buddha was trying to explain to her how the mind needs to be trained. And he used something that she already understood, which was this lute, to explain to her what it is that you're looking to do on the path to enlightenment. And he explains to her this middle way. And he talks to her about how this instrument, when the string is tuned really, really tightly, that it doesn't play beautiful music. And this is what she shared with him. She confirmed this. Yeah, when I tune the string really, really tight, it doesn't play the way the instrument's intended to play. It doesn't play beautiful music. And then he asked her, well, what about when the string's too loose? How does the instrument play then? And she's like, yeah, it doesn't play well there either. It's not playing the way the instrument was intended to play. And then he said, well, what about when you tune that string perfectly to the middle? And she's like, yeah, like that's where the instrument plays beautiful music the way that it was intended to play. And he basically explained how the mind, the human mind, functions exactly the same way. That when you hold on to things really, really tightly with craving, desire, attachment, with clinging, that the mind doesn't perform optimally. It doesn't perform the way it was intended to perform. But when you're all the way over here on the other side, when you swing over here where you're dull and lethargic and complacent and lazy, the mind's not performing well there either. So this way to enlightenment is to train the mind and fine-tune it to come to the middle. Just like you tune a stringed instrument and it plays beautiful music the way it's intended to play, when you tune your mind, it'll come to the middle and you'll be able to experience the peace and the joy that is the enlightened mental state. So this middle way is the Eightfold Path, but it's described through this lute, this instrument, this stringed instrument. So the Eightfold Path is what I taught last week, this core central teaching of the Buddha, and you're essentially dialing in each one of these factors more and more closely in your life to be able to fine-tune the mind. If we would like to update our analogy here a little bit, you could think about like a speaker system. And if you had a speaker system with 8 individual dials, and each time you tweak these dials, you get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers. That's what this Eightfold Path is you're tweaking these 8 individual dials in order to be able to fine-tune the mind and get a better quality performing mind. So that's why I took my time to walk you through this so that you could understand it. And I did that at the beginning of the group learning program. We had 3 individual classes where I taught you the wisdom section, the moral conduct section, and the mental discipline section. And then last week we did the whole entire Eightfold Path in one class. Between chapter 4 and 5, that was the Eightfold Path. And if you missed that, if you weren't in those classes, it's okay because they're recorded and you can watch them on YouTube. You can listen to them on our podcast. You can watch it in Facebook. You can read it in our book. You can listen to the audiobook. These resources are available to help you be able to learn this, because you're going to need to find this middle. And finding this middle way on the path to enlightenment and training your mind with the Eightfold Path is going to help bring the mind to the middle in all aspects of your life. But you can take this very simple teaching and apply it to many different aspects of your life. You can apply this middle way to any single aspect of your life that you're conducting your life in. So let's just say, for example, that you have a new house. And with this new house, you were obsessive about this house because you invested so much time and energy and money to be able to purchase this new house that maybe now when you move in, you're obsessive about it. Every little speck of dirt that hits the ground, you're there sweeping it up and so worried about every little thing of the house. Well, if you're holding on to this house really, really tightly, any little bit of impermanence or change with this house, you're going to experience discontentedness. But also, if you are all the way over here on the other side, where you could care less about what happens with this house and you didn't attend to it and you didn't maintain it, it's not going to be there for you as a shelter when you actually need it. So on either side of that, you're not going to be able to experience the peace and the joy. But if you can come to the middle, where you devote some time to caring for this home and maintaining this home, you're not holding on to it real tight, but you're not just dull and lethargic and complacent about it either, but you're spending some time to ensure that this home is well taken care of. When you get to that middle with the home and taking care of the home, it's almost like the mind is taking a breath of fresh air. You can rest and be easy because you know that this home is being taken care of. Where if you're holding on to it and obsessing about it, you'll worry and have stress and anxiety. But if you're over here on the other side where you could care less about it, you're going to have difficulties and discontentedness there too. But when you know you got your things taken care of and you're attending to the needs of your house and you're maintaining it in the middle way through making wise decisions, then you can rest and be at ease in knowing that your home is well taken care of. And you can apply this to any aspect of your life, whether it's your home, like I'm describing here, or maybe like a career. If you would like to pursue a career, if you're chasing after higher and higher positions and more and more and more and more money, and you're chasing it and longing and yearning for it and holding on to it really tight, you're going to not experience peace and joy there. You're probably going to step on some people. You're probably going to cause some difficulties, making some unwise decisions because you're just chasing after this money. And now you're making enemies on your way to the top. And then when you get there, you're going to realize that it's really not so comfortable after all, because all these other people don't really like you. And maybe you're despised because you kind of had to do some cutthroat kind of things to be able to get to the top. So if you're chasing and obsessed about this progress at work, you're not going to be able to really enjoy the progress that you're making. But if you are all the way on the other side, where you could care less about your career and you're not attending to your skills and abilities and learning and growing and getting quality projects and developing your career, you're not going to be able to have peace and joy there either. So it's when you come to the middle that you're going to be able to experience that peace and the joy, where you make wise decisions towards growing and developing your career, but you're not doing it by chasing and longing and yearning and forming your inner feelings on that. And you're also not over here where you're dull and lethargic and complacent with it either. You can even look at this and apply this to other aspects of your life, any particular aspect of your life that you would like to apply it to. Essentially, what the Buddha is talking about here is practicing a balanced lifestyle. This is something that is in modern language, and a lot of people talk about it. They've been talking about it for many years, is living this balanced lifestyle, And people always wonder, well, what's a balanced lifestyle? Well, it's subjective. It's up to you. Each individual person is going to have their own balanced lifestyle. There might be certain times of your life where you're spending more or less time on any one particular area of your life. Maybe early in life, you're spending a lot of time maintaining a home and getting a home and developing your career and things like that. But then maybe midlife, maybe you're starting to spend more time with your family, or maybe as you get older, you're starting to spend more time with your family. So this middle way that we talk about, it is getting to a balanced lifestyle. And when you get there, your mind will almost take like a breath of fresh air. You'll feel the peace and the joy coming into the mind on all these different topics, whether it's finance or career or maintaining your home or any number of things. When you get to the middle, the mind is almost going to take a breath of fresh air. And now when you get to that middle and you feel that balance, then you need to be prepared that this is going to ebb and flow. It's going to change because of impermanence. That's why this picture that I'm showing you, it starts with a straight line on a trail, but it's not a straight line to the mountain. This straight line isn't going to be a straight line. This path is going to wind and twist and turn, and that's normal. So when you find the middle in any particular topic, you need to be comfortable for that to ebb and flow and change, even as it relates to the teachings of the Buddha. So I'll give you an example on this. One of the things that you're going to learn about the path to enlightenment is practicing generosity is very important for the development of your mind, because what's causing you to experience that anger and the frustration and all those other things is the mind's holding on. So you're using the breathing mindfulness meditation to train your mind to let go. That's why when your mind moves off the breath, you're cutting that off and letting it go and coming back to the breath. But you're also using generosity, where you're giving and sharing more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return, such as your time, effort, energy, and resources. And whenever you get to that point where you're in the middle with your generosity, it'll be like the mind is taking a breath of fresh air. But this is going to ebb and flow, and it's going to change over the course of your life, not just with generosity, but with every single aspect of your life. It's going to ebb and flow and it's going to change. But using this example of generosity, let's just say somebody was quite rich and quite wealthy, and they had additional resources that they could use in order to be very generous at a certain time in their life. Maybe they're giving like $1,000 a month to some charity, like an orphanage or something like that. And now they're going through life that way for multiple years, and that $1,000 a month is no big deal for them, and that's what they're choosing to do. Well, now at some point in their life, maybe their kids go away to college, or maybe their parents are getting elderly and they need to have certain care for their elderly parents. And now there's more resources that need to be directed to those kinds of things. And they don't have that kind of money anymore to send the $1,000 a month to the orphanage. Whereas if they cling to that and they hold on to that, they could be depleting their resources and not having what they need for other things. But if they understand that there's impermanence here and that they need to ebb and flow with this, maybe they drop down their donation to that orphanage to maybe $100 a month or $200 a month, whatever it is for them that is the middle way at that particular time in their life. So finding the middle way is important, and getting to that middle with each individual aspect of your life. But then you need to understand impermanence, that these things are going to change, where you're not interested in clinging to any particular decision. Because if you cling to that $1,000 a month, when your situation changes with your finances, you could be really ending up depleting your resources and getting to a point where you don't have what you need. But also, if you swing all the way to the other side, where you're not sharing anything with anybody, and not just money, but your time and effort and energy, if you're not sharing with people and practicing generosity, then your mind would be quite selfish. So you're not interested in being on either side of this, where you're sharing excessively and depleting your resources, but you're not interested in being on the other side either, where you're just stingy and selfish. You need to be able to find that middle, where you're sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources with the people around you, where things don't have to be self-satisfying all the time, where if I spend 3 hours, I want this in return, or if I spend 3 days, I want this in return. You would like to get to a point where you're giving and sharing without any expectation of anything in return, not even a thank you from somebody, that you don't have that expectation. So this is the middle way, is what I'm sharing with you, a very simple teaching. It's referring to the Eightfold Path. When you see the words of the Buddha in chapter 6, where I show you this story about the lute being tuned, you can see that he references the Eightfold Path as the middle way. And you would like to learn and develop the Eightfold Path in order to be able to practice the middle way, fine-tuning the mind so it can perform optimally. But then you can take this very simple teaching of the middle way, not the Eightfold Path, but the middle way, this concept of being in the middle, and you can apply it to every single aspect of your life. Even eating food, you would like to eat in moderation. Whereas if you're gorging on food, you're giving your body a whole lot of things to digest, and that's going to be very expensive. But also, if you're eating very little and you're not giving the body what it needs, it's not going to have healthy, nutritious food to take care of you, right? So you got to find that middle with that in every other aspect of your life. So this is everything that I have to share with you guys today. I know normally I talk for a good hour and a half and open up for questions 2, 3, 4 times during our talk. But as I mentioned, this is a very simple teaching. It's the Eightfold Path, which is the depth that I talked about in the last 2 weeks. That's the middle way. But we can extrapolate this lesson of the middle way and apply it to relationships, our career, our finances, our generosity, to even pursuing this path. Right? You would like to read 10, 15, 20 minutes a day and do some meditation, as I've taught you guys 2 or 3 times a day, building up to 30 minutes or more. Whereas if you were to sit down and read for 4 hours a day or 3 hours a day, that's giving the mind way too much to digest, right? So you would like to apply this middle way to all aspects of your life. So I'm going to open up to any questions that you guys might have. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions you like by just unmuting yourself. So let me know if you guys have any questions on this topic of the middle way. Okay, it looks like Yihung has a question here in YouTube. Hello, teacher David. The sound of live sound, seems to be cutting off every 2 to 3 seconds. Oh, now it's good. Okay. Looks like that was the sound issue. Sorry, Yihung. Pleased that I got that sorted out for you guys. Some impermanence there for you, right? All right. I don't see anything on Facebook, and I don't see anything in Zoom either. So you guys must not have any questions today about this topic. Okay, so what I'm going to do to end is just share this with you. This is something I wrote several years ago when a student asked me, can you describe the middle way? And I was like, okay, let me try to describe it in words in a clear and concise way that you could actually practice. And you can read this along with me if you like. It's titled, Where is the Middle? If you observe the mind is experiencing happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria, sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, boredom, loneliness, shyness, jealousy, resentment, etc., any of these discontent feelings, then move the mind to peacefulness, calmness, serenity, and contentedness with joy. This is the middle, where the mind is unaffected by discontent feelings. Remember, those pleasant feelings are discontentednesses too, because it's temporary. The mind is forming its inner feeling on some condition. You would like to get to the unconditioned joy, the unconditioned happiness, where the mind can just always be happy. The mind can reside in the present moment with singleness of mind, peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, permanently, as one nears closer and closer to enlightenment through training the mind. The mind will be focused, concentrated, have deep memorization, with clarity of thought and no discontent feelings. The mind will be at ease. So while one is learning and practicing to attain this mental state permanently, any time you observe the mind is not in the middle, experiencing discontentedness, pleasant feelings, painful feelings, or feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant, actively apply right effort, eliminating unwholesome mental qualities and arising wholesome qualities to bring the mind to the middle, where it resides, only practicing singleness of mind, letting go of thoughts, feelings, and emotions that are unwholesome and discontent, bringing the mind to peacefulness, calmness, serenity, and contentedness with joy, so that the mind can be at ease. So this is how you bring the mind to the middle. You use your mindfulness, your awareness of mind. And anytime you see the mind's not in the middle, you apply right effort to bring it to the middle. And this is something that you learn as part of the Eightfold Path. It's going to take you time to develop this ability. Sitting in a class like this and talking about it is wonderful, but actually practicing it is where the real challenge comes in. So that's why you've got the entire Eightfold Path. You've got your meditation, and you've got all these other tools to be working with, to be able to develop the qualities that you need to be able to notice when the mind's not in the middle. And then you can bring it back to the middle through right effort. And it's going to take time, multiple months and years, to build this up. One of the ways you can think about the middle way is if you have a piece of wood and a steel rod and you're grinding it back and forth. Initially, it's going to bounce around a lot. But if you grind it back and forth enough, eventually you're going to get a groove here. And now when the pole is in the groove, the steel rod is in the groove, when it pops out, you're going to notice it easily and you'll be able to bring it back. But eventually you grind the steel rod back and forth enough, and eventually this groove is so deep your mind never pops out. And that's what it's like when you're meditating and when you're practicing in day-to-day life. If you can notice when your mind's not in the middle and bring it to the middle, for longer and longer periods of time, your mind will be in the middle, and you'll get used to what that feels like, where the peacefulness is there. And then when it's not there, you'll notice that more and more readily. And the longer you're able to keep your mind in the middle, you're going to get a deeper and deeper groove here, and the mind will be less and less likely to pop out. So this is what you would like to be able to do with the middle way, is be practicing this daily so you can use your mindfulness to observe, there's peacefulness and joy there. And when there's not peacefulness and joy there, you'd like to bring the mind to the middle. So it looks like some people have some questions here. So we'll just go with Ted and Kristen first. And then Marcy, looks like you're after that.
Hi, thank you, Teacher David. You brought up the house thing, and Ted and I just returned back to Connecticut after being gone for about 6 months. And it was my first time walking into my home after renting it to some tenants and, going through the house and looking at things and noticing where there was some, maybe a little damage here and there. And I noticed immediately when my mind was not peaceful. And the impermanence of, again, I'm very particular about things. I'm probably a little bit too tight, I think, on that scale. I'm a little bit like things a certain way. And so when it's not, and, I get very, I start to get a little upset about things like that. And so I immediately noticed, and I did have to practice yesterday the Eightfold Path, like the idea of, okay, this is impermanence. Nothing can stay the same. And I noticed that, it took me less time to come back, I think, than it had maybe 6 months ago. I think I would still be enraged and upset and irritated. Where last night it took a couple hours for me to sort of like settle into the fact that like things aren't going to be exactly the way I left them. But by the time, the day ended, and I was like, you know what, it's okay. I'm actually okay with it. And that's like a big step for me. And I know it's because of the Eightfold Path. Like there were steps that I can kind of plug into and say, okay, what can I do to calm my mind? And the idea of like, okay, right view, I'm the cause of my own discontentedness. And so I need to let that go, and that nothing's going to stay the same, impermanence. Like, so, and then right speech, like I was a little irritated with Ted because he was sort of not agreeing with me on certain things. And so I had to like catch myself and apologize. So I'm not there yet, but I definitely noticed it, and it was helpful to have the Eightfold Path to sort of lean in on and say, okay, what can I do to sort of come back? So anyway, that was sort of what I've experienced just within the last 24 hours. So it is helpful, and I'm very grateful that you're teaching it, because it's these tools for living that I noticed to help me to kind of, okay, everything's okay. I'm going to survive. It's not the end of the world. Like, yeah. And then you brought up the house example, because I am very tight in in that area where I like things particularly, I like things like to neat and organized, and I need to just like relax a little bit. It can't always be that way. So that was it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Kristen. Yeah, that's the middle way. That's what I was just reading, is that when you notice your mind's not in the middle, you got to cut that off and let it go. So not only was your craving and desire and attachment getting triggered with your home, but then you had a craving for Ted to agree with you. And now that attachment got triggered, right? So it's like the mind becomes discontent because it's discontent, right? It's kind of like stacking it on top of each other. So that's good that you caught it, that you saw it, you knew what to do with it. You have different tools and techniques of how to deal with this than you had 6 months ago. So now you're gradually learning, and you'll see that as you're living your life this way more and more, eventually you'll get to the point where that won't even arise. Like right now, it's still arising because there's still cravings there, and you're catching it 2 or 3 hours later. Okay, next time you'll back that up even more. It's kind of like a wild bush is growing, and you got to cut it back and cut it back and cut it back and cut it back and cut it back, and then eventually you uproot it out of the mind. So you've cut it back to 2 or 3 hours, where before it sounds like you would spend multiple days being discontent because of things like this.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, looks like Marcy has a question. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Teacher David. Thank you for sharing, Kristen. That was great. It brought back memories of my own journey there. So Teacher David, I have noticed that in the earlier stages here, I would do a lot of what I call self-talk to the mind, like talking to it constantly, kind of like what Kristen was doing in that moment. But now I've started to see where now the mind seems to like recognize, but then it just goes away. Things will come up and I'll see it, I'll recognize it, and then all of a sudden it just kind of passes. And there's not any more of that self-talk. Is that normal in that progress there? Because I noticed before, like I would do a lot of self-talking to myself, to the mind, being like, you silly mind, you're so attached to that, let it go. And now it's just kind of like, yep, that's an attachment, and then it goes.
Yeah, this is what's called maturing and release, as well as thinking and pondering. So before, when you were just learning the path and you're kind of starting to learn it, you needed to do a lot of thinking and pondering and think about the teachings in relationship to what the situation is that you're encountering. And during that process, the mind needed to acquire wisdom that it didn't have. So there's that long period of time where the mind's thinking and pondering about every situation that you're interacting with. And that comes after you've developed a certain understanding of the teachings. But then once you go through that thinking and pondering, the mind has that wisdom on board of what it needs to be doing in any one given situation. And it doesn't need to do all that thinking and pondering or the self-talk like you're describing, because the mind just already knows what to do, which is cut that off and let it go. And now you do that enough where the mind just responds that way. It's just almost automatic on autopilot that you'll knock down all your cravings, desires, attachments, and the mind will experience more and more qualities of enlightenment, where the brightness and the radiance will come shining through because you're not giving that craving, desire, attachment any airtime, right? You're not allowing it to feed. You're essentially starving the craving. As soon as the craving pops up, nope, you cut it off. Right? So that's what you ultimately would like to get to, but it takes that thinking and pondering and sometimes that self-talk, that inner dialogue for many months and years before the mind wises up enough to just know, like, cut it off. That's what you need to do.
I didn't notice when I was more of a recluse and lived in my house and I was practicing these teachings, I remember getting to this point before, but then, obviously the dip back and I kind of lost some of that. But now as it's coming back in, it's almost like a higher level of understanding. It's almost like there's this, I don't know how to explain it, like a sense of more clarity. Like it's almost like it's innate, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the mind's familiar with it. It's kind of like been there, done that. The mind's done it before, so it's familiar with it. It's kind of like riding a bike. You could learn to ride a bike and then go away from it for 5 or 10 years, but you can easily come back to it and brush up on it and boom, you can ride a bike again. It's the same kind of thing with these teachings. You're not interested in going into complacency, but sometimes the mind does do that. And whatever development you've built up to, if someone's not in the first stage of enlightenment, they will regress backwards. But then if they get back on the path, they'll be able to make forward progress more readily than they did before, when they were completely off the path and had never known about the teachings of the Buddha whatsoever, for example.
Thank you, Teacher David.
You're welcome. Okay, let me look around and see if we have any more questions coming in anywhere. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions anywhere. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just in class here, as I mentioned to you guys, we've had 3 weeks of classes where they've been really deep, hearty chapters with a lot to understand. This chapter 6 is just a little light chapter to give you time to digest the 3 chapters that you've already been learning, but also this kind of simple teaching and applying this to your life and seeing how it fits in with all the other things. Next week, we're going to be in chapter 7, which is the 5 precepts, a householder's guide to daily practice. This is where you're going to learn 5 impactful decisions that you can make either wisely or unwisely that are going to produce either wholesome results or unwholesome results. If you've learned that the Buddha taught no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, and no intoxicants, this isn't the 5 precepts. The Buddha didn't teach that way. That sounds like black and white. It sounds like rules and commandments. I'm going to share his actual words with you on the 5 precepts, because you're going to see this much more illuminating language that is going to help you so much more, because you're actually learning with the original words of the Buddha. So I'm going to share that with you, and I'm going to help you to understand where this fits in, because he's showing you this cause and effect and showing you how making wise decisions leads to wholesome results. So you're not going to hear any rules or commandments or anything like that from me ever, because the Buddha didn't teach that way. He's teaching you this natural law, and you'll be able to see this through the 5 precepts if you haven't already seen it so far in what you've learned. So the 5 precepts actually plug into the Eightfold Path. So it's helpful to have known the Eightfold Path first, and now you can learn the 5 precepts. And then from that point forward, each week we're going to be getting into some more hearty chapters. So this week is kind of an opportunity for you to go back, look at the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, really make sure you soak that into the mind really well, understand this middle way, practicing that, so it gives you a little bit of a time to really kind of soak into what you've learned so far and just really continue to practice this, the meditations and all the other things that you've been learning so far. So thank you all for joining for today's class. If you'd like to join next week, it's going to be the same time, Sunday, 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. On Wednesday, we're going to be in part 3 of our 4-part series on Buddhist chanting. If you'd like to do that in the evening, Thai time, that's what we're going to be doing. On the morning Thai time, we're going to have a grand reopening of our newly refurbished classroom and temple here in Chiang Mai. We're going to live stream this. So we're still going to do meditation, and I'm still going to do a talk. I'm going to be teaching a topic I haven't taught before, which is going to help you, which is to understand what a temple is and why they're important, and why maintenance and refurbishing of a temple is so important for us to be able to bring the teachings into the world in the way that we are. So we're going to do a ribbon cutting celebration and kind of gawk at all the beautiful things that are in the new classroom. But then we're going to do some meditation, and we're going to actually learn some things too. So you guys are welcome to join that even through the live stream, or if you're here in Chiang Mai, you're welcome to join live. So thank you all for joining. Thank you for your dedication of learning and practicing these teachings. Perhaps we'll see you guys in a future class. Be well and have a lovely rest of your day. Take care. Sawadee ka.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To provide support for this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha. To access more teachings, visit buddhadailywisdom.com. There, you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Remember to establish a daily, consistent meditation practice, along with learning and practicing these teachings. A well-developed meditation practice is the foundation in which to train the mind to attain enlightenment.